Thank you, everyone, for coming and listening to me talk about Circa. I think probably the very best place to get started is why am I talking about Circa? Why is this coming from me? So the background to my knowledge on Circa, when I came into Bud Werner about a year ago, Elisa Selby was training me, and we went through all things tech services, top to bottom, A to Z, front and back. And when we got to the discussion about inventory, she showed me what we were doing here, and it was remarkably difficult as far as workflow and using various Microsoft Access spreadsheets and homemade RFID scanning software. And I asked, there's got to be another way, a better way. And she said, well, yeah, you know, Marmot has an inventory product from III called Circa, but from what I've heard, nobody can get it to work. And that has been my understanding, kind of the basic belief on Circa ever since. So I decided that I was going to play with it and see if I could figure out what was going on. Why was it malfunctioning? Was it something we were doing? And what could I learn about this product? Maybe it's not broken. Maybe we're not using it properly. So I went out and I started inventorying a variety of different areas in our library, from new materials to DVDs to CDs, to try and come up with some rhyme or reason or workarounds. And lo and behold, in that time, I think I hit on what is going on, and also I was successfully able to come up with some workarounds. And that's why I'm here today. I have to admit I have a little bit of a hope that I can get more people using Circa inventory. Right now, Marmot has bought the barcode software, but there is indeed RFID software that as a consortia, if we want to purchase that, it's available. We don't have it right now because, frankly, nobody's using it because there's this belief that it doesn't work. I do want to preface this that this is all my basis, my understanding, my observations. This didn't come from III. And it does mean that there's probably several people that have other bits of information that they want to add, and I would say the more information we have, the merrier. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started. So Circa runs on the idea that you are inventorying within a location code. So by location code, Circa believes this is your location code. Anything that lives under location field in the item record is a location, and that's pretty much it. But there are a lot of us, Bud Werner included, that don't just use the location code to indicate where materials are. By that, I mean when locations are added to areas that are not in the location field, such as this one, docu, DVD, in new books, Circa doesn't know what to do with that. It believes that new books should all live under a similar call number paradigm. When you have these subsets in front of Circa, the shelf list gets confused. It doesn't really know what to do with that. So another example here, and this is actually an example that I'm going to carry through the training, is SSBVD. So here at Bud Werner, we use the location code SSBVD to indicate it's a video. It's our video collection. And this matters because it also ties into I-type and all the rest, but more importantly, they all generally live in the same area. However, we do add location-like information to all of our SSBVD item records. In this example, it's Blu-ray. We do this not just with Blu-rays, but we do this with, as you saw, docu DVD, foreign DVD, foreign Blu-ray. It's quite extensive, the number of added location-like bits of information that we add to our call number. So Circa it's not designed to use that information. It's designed to understand that within a location code, SSBVD, everything would be in an understandable order, whether it be alphabetical by title or in call number order. It should now fall into a paradigm. When, in this example, if I went in and scanned these titles together by alphabetical by title, Animal Friends, Battle Royale, Batman Returns, that makes sense, but there are these presets in front of that call number that completely throw Circa off. So to expand on this, imagine that Circa is an Excel. It first identifies the location, SSBVD, and then it sorts by call number. Well, if your call number has additional location information, it doesn't sort properly, and it no longer makes sense. Let me take a minute to see if people understand this, because it's really the basis of everything else that we're going to come up with. Does anybody have any questions on the difference between location as Circa reads it and location as we identify it using call number information? To continue. Got it. So in this example of an Excel, this is an Excel of all of our, not all of our, but a good subset of our video collections. You can see we have Blu-ray nonfiction, Blu-ray fiction, docu complete set, DVD nonfiction, DVD fiction. Circa reads the yellow. We read the blue. So in this example, Circa reads the yellow, expecting column A and column C to now match with column B. But if you were to sort column C alphabetically, column B would now be completely out of line. And if you were to sort by column B, as we are currently, column C is no longer alphabetical. So this is what people are encountering when they do a shelf list on Circa. It goes through this, and it's not finding any rhyme or reason, and eventually it comes back and says, I don't know what to give you. And that's basically why people believe that Circa doesn't work. So here's another example, just to make it clear. We expect Circa to read column A and then column B. So what Circa is really reading is column A, expecting B and C to coincide, but they don't. Another great example, just to expand, we here at Bud Werner use a location code SSBNB for new books, but we use the new collection for all new materials. So we use SSBNB for new fiction, new nonfiction, new audiobook fiction, new audiobook nonfiction, new DVD, new Blu-ray, new docu-DVD. In this one location code, Circa really doesn't know what to provide back as far as a shelf list. SSBVD, there are 12 other location-like indicators. I think I've kind of driven the idea home, but I really want to make sure that Circa basically is just getting very, very confused by how we've chosen to catalog our materials. Now, I'm not about to say in any way that we should recatalog and add location codes. That is preposterous, for one. And frankly, I believe that our cataloging has worked out well for us, and I believe for the other libraries, and I wouldn't in any way want to go back and change our item records to make Circa less confused. So what do we do? Circa reads these location codes, and it says, I don't understand. I cannot produce a shelf list. And so people kind of throw up their hands up in the air and say, great, it doesn't work. But it does work. It is doing a huge number of other processes while you're scanning through the list. So let's look at some of those other things and some of the workarounds. Circa doesn't just read the barcode and try and identify that the items are in an order and produce a shelf list. It is a lot more robust of a piece of software than just that one bit. And by that, it's multitasking. So Circa, when you scan a book, it's identifying all of the rest of these sort of cleanup opportunities while you're at it. So just imagine right now if you're out in the stacks and you're scanning a section of materials that you want to get inventory on. If you scan a book that has a status of missing, billed, gone, or lost and paid, it will give you an instant update of would you like to update this status to on shelf. If the item is billed or lost and paid, it will give you an instant pop-up to rectify that patron's account. If an item has a hold, it will notify you to bring that item to the Circ staff to route out the hold. As I talked about, it'll the build, so you can rectify the build. And if the item isn't in the system, it'll say barcode not found. Not only does it tell you this, but my understanding of the system is that it's, to me, very, very clear as it's happening. So as you scan through, it won't let you continue on to the next item until you've said, okay, I see what you're telling me. Let me move on or let me take care of that. So there's not really any risk of missing the pop-ups as they come. They require an action to move on. So what do those screens look like? This is an example of what happens when Circa comes across a barcode not found. It won't continue scanning until you say something to do with that barcode. This is an unexpected status. This is what happens when you get a billed item on the shelf. You have to hit OK in order to continue. The item is checked out. Would you like to check it in? If you say yes, it'll automatically check that item in and it'll have an on-shelf status. This is what that looks like when you hit the update to update that status. And let me go back. So in some ways, to me, that is one of the biggest assets of the software is the idea that we're not just inventorying to make sure things are in order, but we're also inventorying to identify that our data is correct. And even if Circa comes back and says, I don't know what to do with that shelf list, it does tell you all of the other statuses that could be wrong with the item. But that shelf list is still very important. You can't really do an inventory without knowing what is also missing from the shelf. So isn't it great that it tells you this barcode's not in the system or the status is incorrect? But we do, clearly need to know what materials aren't there. Well, like I said, Circa is multitasking. So while Circa is scanning those barcodes and providing back that the item status is matched, it's also putting in an inventory date in the item record. So those of us that I assume are in this meeting right now and have been working with Sierra III products for a long time, we know that anytime you change a data point in an item record, there's all of a sudden an aha moment. Maybe I can use the new data that's been put into the item record to pull that shelf list myself through Create List. And that's exactly what you can do. That is completely plausible and possible, and frankly, it means that Circa works perfect. You can get all of the data that you need out of Circa with the combination of Create List and that inventory date. So how do we do that? Using Create List, the logic is a bit extensive. I have to admit, you're going to have a certain amount of parameters to make it work. But these are the steps that I use here. So I first want to make sure that I'm only collecting my Bud-Werner items. So I do item agency equals to 78 for, in my case, Bud-Werner. And in your case is whatever your library agency code is. You want to now utilize that inventory date and say inventory date range between the dates that you're scanning. So if you want to find all of the items that are not in the inventory that you scanned, you want to say that that inventory date range does not include the dates scanned. So if I can clarify that a little bit, that inventory date, let's say I scanned all last week. I want all of the items that don't have that date in their item record. So I want to look for a list of all items that don't include dates of whatever last week was, January 14 to 20. I also want to make sure that I don't want the items that weren't scanned and don't have the inventory date for the simple fact that we already know that they're missing, or they're in transit, or they were checked out, or on the hold shelf. We only want the items that our system says should have been there. So you want an item status of on shelf. Obviously, you want to make sure that you're not scanning your entire collection, but just the location code that you were in. So from this example, I would want location code SSBVD in that I'm scanning just the videos. I don't want to find all of Bud-Werner's library materials that don't have that inventory date. There would be no way to get to the entire inventory in 1 week. I add lone rule equals to 0, and that's because from my experience, the status of on shelf, that hyphen, that is also applied to materials that are just checked out. So lone rule equals 0 makes sure that that material is not checked out, it really is on shelf. And then finally, the call number range that you're scanning. Again, I never found it possible to scan an entire location code within the amount of time that I wanted to run the shelf list. And so I would do it in smaller chunks between the call number range that was inventoried in that amount of time. So what that looks like, here's an example that I use regularly or have used for Bud-Werner. So again, item agency equals Bud-Werner. Inventory date not within the time that I scanned. A status of on shelf. The location of SSBJU for children's materials. A lone rule of 0. And a mark tag between nonfiction starting with A and nonfiction ending with 599.9. Apparently I scanned up to 600 that day. So I want to find all of those materials, and that's the search strategy. Another example is I just wanted to give one as a nonfiction and one as a fiction because of the difference in call number. As you saw on the previous slide, I did a call number, a mark tag on the last line, mark tag of 092. That, to me, has been easier to find the nonfiction call numbers. But with the fiction, item call number starts with has been just fine. So that is also a little bit of a trick in identifying the difference between running a list for fiction or nonfiction. So in this example, I'm doing the adult new fiction, location code equals to new, and then call number starts with fiction, mystery, or sci-fi. I should have had parentheses around this, by the way, between lines 6 and 8, just to make sure that it pulled properly. So sorry about that typo on that one. What you get when you run that list is anything that should have been inventoried, for which you can then either item by item, create a list to go out and recheck to make sure the items really are missing. Or here at Bud Werner, we run a missing list monthly for our Circa staff to go find them. So in my particular institution, I do not go back and check to make sure they're missing. I just go ahead and mark them as missing, knowing that they'll get a search later on. So that can be done as a global update. Like, as I mentioned, with the combination of the Sierra Crate list via the inventory date that is provided by Circa and all of the other material functionality that Circa provides, it actually does work entirely as you expect, and you do get all of the data that you would want. And it's not Circa that's broken, it's how we have cataloged our material that makes that shelf list ineligible for our materials. Given that, I do believe strongly in this product. I have to say, I think that it is really user-friendly and has been an asset to our library given how we used to inventory materials. So it's a little kind of disheartening to think that we have this product that, you know, I find very user-friendly with the feeling that it doesn't work when it does. And so that's the basis of what I know about Circa. I went really fast. It's only been about a half an hour, but I do think there's probably a plethora of questions. So I'd like to go ahead and open it up and see if I can clarify anything to anybody, or if they want me to expand on anything. Okay, so Amy asks, how do we physically scan the items? Yes, so I do have a laptop with a barcode scanner that I bring to the stacks. So Circa is a web-based software, so you need to make sure that you have an internet connection on the laptop, and then you do log in with just one of your Sierra sessions. So I can actually probably pull up the actual Circa. Let me know if you don't see what I see once I pull it up. And where is it? There it is. So can you guys all see the Circa login as I have it on my screen? Okay, good. So the URL, probably should have included that, but I'll go ahead and actually put it in the chat box. And then I will also make sure that Tammy sends that out. But I believe that the material at the end is just random URL stuff. I think you can get into it by just doing sierra.marmot.org/III, I believe. I don't know. Maybe you should use the URL now that I think about it. But anyway, it does, you do log in just using your regular Sierra login. It does use a session, so you might need to finagle that with your institutions as to which login you want to use. But once you log in, and it takes a minute from just to figure out where you're going, you would want to click up here on the inventory control. So as you can see, there's a number of other options, including check-in, check-out, rapid update, and count internal use. And I would be very interested to hear what other people have used with those, because you know, Ginger asks, have I used them? And I have not. I've only used the inventory control. The reason being is I don't work really at the front of the house. I'm all tech, so check in, check out isn't really something that I have needed to use, but it looks like, Amy, when you log in, you only see check out. How do you get the other functions? I believe that that's going to be something you would have to talk with Marmot about. I assume it's the same as all other Sierra functions. You get assigned your permissions. So definitely check in with Tammy as far as permissions, because I believe everybody should have the full home screen. So I'm going to click up here on inventory control, and it starts you right off. So you just scan a barcode and go from there. Let me see if it'll let me. I actually have a withdrawn book, and I'll show you the immediate pop-up that you get. So you're going to get it right there, barcode not found, and then continue on. So it is pretty fast and instantaneous. So now if I hit shelf list right now, which is the functionality that people are finding doesn't work. Oh, it wants more than one item. Let me see if I have, okay, I don't have anything that I can scan right now to bring up a shelf list, but that's the moment. If you've been scanning 100 items in SSVVB with the expanded call numbers, when you hit shelf list, it'll come up with that error that I showed you. Shelf list cannot be generated, and that's, again, the part where we're getting stuck. But again, it do the immediate pop-up of the rest. And then at any time you can start over, or if you want to go back. I do believe that it doesn't like the back button, so you have to, if you look up in the top right-hand corner, you can either exit completely or just click on the home screen and go back. So Nancy asks if there's a best practices document, and Marmot, which is being maintained by Tammy right now, says that they're working on it. So I think kind of right now where we're at is just that there are just so few of us using it that it's been difficult to even really get the information out that it works, let alone best practices on how to use it. I think maybe this is kind of the start of the conversation, just having us here going over it. And then, so yeah, back to Amy's original question, I will have a laptop with a barcode scanner. I'll log in with my Wi-Fi and go to the URL, use a session, scan through what I'm going to scan through for that day, and then rectify the items as they come up. And as soon as I'm done, then I come back and I run that create list. And I just keep a create list open. So because the search strategy is a little cumbersome, I just keep one at all times. So mine's right here, Bud Inventory Missing Long-Term Project, which was an idea that we had gotten this summer. When you have a bucket that you want to keep, you should put that LT project, and then I just switch out the parameters from what I searched each time. So on this one, I'll change the location code, the call numbers that I searched from, and then I actually did add a couple other parameters that I found helpful. Not checked, or last check-in, not within the time that I scanned, and last check-in, the last one was just me playing with it today, so don't ignore line 8. But that's just because sometimes you have, even on this search strategy, you'd have an inventory where it's not within that date, and it still has an on-shelf status, and that's because the item was just checked in. And so you don't want to change those materials to missing right away because they're not missing, they just haven't been shelved on the shelf yet. And so I want to make sure that I give the shelving staff enough time to get that material out there before calling it missing. And so I did add a parameter of don't give me anything that may have recently been checked in. Are there any other questions that I can help answer? I would like to touch on, with the barcode scanning, it is a little bit more physical to pull out each item to get to the barcode. All of us, we had a discussion not that long ago about barcode placement, and I know that we all have barcodes in different areas, but the reality is that they are not on the spine of the book. And so you do have to kind of pull out the book to get it scanned. And I think that's kind of my hope, is that with more people on board with Circa, maybe we can start a discussion about getting that RFID scanner, because that would really make the process go just even that much more smoothly. And I think there would be a lot more use out of it. A last little tidbit that I have found really helpful, when the idea of inventorying the entire library is just so cumbersome that, I think we as a profession sometimes just pretend like we don't need to do an inventory, which, is maybe in some ways there can be some arguments made towards that. But I have found it very, very useful to inventory the more popular and, for lack of better words, the more theft-ridden collections quite often. So I go through the video collection about every 6 months, and the DVD collection about the same, and then the new materials, I would say once a year. And it's been fantastic. Again, in our library, we can then move all of those to a missing status, and we can search for them. But then after 3 months of searching for missing items, we decide whether or not to repurchase them. And so it's an opportunity for us to repurchase materials that we think we have, but that we don't, to keep our collection really up to the standards that we expected it to be. So if nothing else, I would suggest maybe starting there, because it's been very useful for us to at least do those collections more often. And then as I go through, I do a lot of the collection development and maintenance here. So as I go through some of my other collections, let's say I'm doing the graphic novels or maybe photography upstairs, after I'm done doing a withdraw process and a collection management process, then I'll inventory just to make sure that I know that that section that I've been spending so much time maintaining already as far as withdrawals and purchases, that the data now matches at least on that one section. So I would say maybe divvying it up based off your collection development and management processes also makes it a little bit more manageable. And any other questions? If you think of anything, please let me know. Again, I don't consider myself the expert, but I do consider myself an advocate for the software. And if you get frustrated with it or decide not to use it, I guess I'd be interested to know why and see if maybe as a consortia we can help make it more user-friendly. But I haven't, like I said, I've found it pretty self-explanatory as far as our use case goes.
Great. I want to thank you so much, Emily. This was amazing. It was really great. Thank you. I have the email address of everyone who was interested in coming to the webinar, as well as anyone who couldn't. And I think I could maybe just start taking this as a group and maybe sharing information, because I'm assuming people are wanted to come to the webinar because they're interested. Sorry, go ahead.
I just said, yeah, I mean, I would assume so, and I think it's, that's sort of the joy of a consortia, is that we build knowledge off each other. So having an open communication with people interested in using it, I think is a fantastic idea.
Yeah, and I think between people trying to play with it, sharing information, giving screen captures, that we could start creating a really comprehensive document on this. So I'm excited. So, and I want to thank you, Emily, for starting this off. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, you're welcome. I hope it's been helpful for others, and let me know if I can help any more.